Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Vallen, and this is Tinker's Construct 2, Tier 2 Items and Weapons. So how do I define Tier 2 items and weapons? Well, that's simple enough, just those that are accessed via the tool forge. Previously, you were restricted to the Tier 1 items by using the tool station, which just had a limited display. And once you move up into the tool forge, which is crafted with a lot of metals in some ways, you should be able to access a whole new slew of tools and weapons at your disposal. Now, you don't have to make those out of metals. You can make them out of other materials. As I am demonstrating here, these are all pretty much wooden weapons and items, so don't judge them by their appearance. But they all have a really excellent use. Let me get into this straight away. So first up, I'm going to be covering the lumber axe. And you can see the lumber axe is made with a large plate, a broad axe head, tough tool rod, and a tough binding. So it does require a bit more material. Now, the lumber axe is quite impressive in how much time it can save you if you're harvesting wood. It will harvest in a 3x3 cube area, and it also will fell entire trees. Now, it's actually a little bit different from Tinker's Construct in the past. Now, this one here I have only has 150 durability on it because it's made of wood, but you'll see that it can be quite effective. So to give an example, I can use this to harvest this area. Now it's a large wooden structure. Let me just start chopping, and it takes a little bit of time because it's harvesting all those, and it's just a wooden lumber axe, but you can see it harvested a 3x3 cube. And if I continue on with this, it will harvest other items like fences or other wooden products. Very simply. And that ate up a good chunk of the durability on this because that's the number of logs that were used to break it. Now, it also has a tree capacitator or tree capitator ability, if you will. You notice I have a small one here and a large one here. The good difference is that if I have at least this amount of tree leaves on top of it, it will recognize as a tree and therefore harvest the entire thing. If it only has, like a little bit here on the side, like on the top, you just put like a little thing of leaf on top, it's not going to work. You need to have at least a few pieces up there. Then you just start chopping here, and it may take a little bit of time because, like I said, this is just a wooden axe. But there you go. It harvests the entire thing, and it's raining down all the wood that you need. Now, another good thing is it's actually a pretty decent weapon. You can use it with a shield and attack. It's very slow to wield, but then again, it is also a tool. To show off further, there is a large 2x2 spruce tree here. Let's start on the bottom here, and you can see it's recognizing that it needs to decapitate the item. And you saw that the tool broke and only went part way up. And it starts at the bottom, works its way up, so I'd have to repair this and continue going back up again. Which actually, as this is a wooden tool, I can repair it using the wood I just chopped down and continue to finish the job. There we go. And that's the last of that tree. Now, regrettably though, it is unlike the hatchet where it will take damage from harvesting leaves. So that's something you'll want to be very cautious of, that you don't try using this to destroy all the leaves in your inventory. Now, that being said, there is another tool that can be very beneficial, and that is the wooden scythe. This here harvests crops and or leaves and will replant any crops that are fully grown in an area. It's basically a 3x3. Plus, you get an area of effect attack, and it can be used in coordination with a shield, though I don't recommend it because it also has a secondary ability. And that is, if I click in the center here, let's aim for the center of this area here, you'll see it harvested all of the wheat, left the excess seeds, and replanted all of those here. If I left click instead of right click, it will instead chop all of these items and plants, picking them all up and breaking them. Now, that can be very useful so that you can understand the difference there. If I right click with a shield, it can be a little bit more interesting. There we go. Now when I aim at the center, you can actually see the area that it's going to break or try and harvest. So if I right-click with a shield, it'll still work, but it gets a little bit choppy. You can see that there are some glitchiness going on here. It will sometimes harvest things, sometimes it won't. So it's not ideal if you're going to use it as a gardening tool to use it with a shield. Now, on top of that, I can show off that it has the ability to attack multiple foes at once just by a quick swipe attack. You can then attack 2 at a time instead of just 1. You can see I'm doing damage in an area to both of these critters here and taking them out without much effort. So leveling this up as a weapon and a tool can be very beneficial if you add the right modifiers or use the right materials for it. Now that's not all though. It is also good for harvesting leaves. As you can see, it will chop in a large area, taking out large swaths of leaves in a 3x3 cube, similar to how the lumber axe did with wood. Of course, it also works on grass areas as well, so you can quickly clear out large areas with your scythe and get your area looking much cleaner and not having to worry about running around breaking all this stuff one block at a time with your fists. And here you can see the scythe is made with a scythe head, wooden tough binding, tough tool rod, and another tough tool rod. So this one, as before, is also going to be a little bit more material intensive to make. And next up we have the excavator, which is made with a excavator head, large plate, tough tool rod, and a tough binding. And there's a good reason why I'm telling you this, because a lot of the materials will change how these items are affected, which will be covered in another video. But the excavator is good on dirt, sand, gravel, and snow, as expected, also pretty darn good on grass, but it also can create paths just like your regular shovels can. So in this case, if I wanted to dig out an area, it wouldn't be very difficult. You can see I dig that out. If I dig down further, it also works on another plane. So if I dig on the side of a block, it will continue in that direction, a 3x3 slice. And then if I wanted to make a path, simply just right-click on grass, and it will create one, assuming that it can. Of course, right here I've got a little glow ball stuck in place, so it's not going to do it. And as with the others, this one also works quite well with a shield if you wanted to use it in combat, which it's not too bad for, but there are better choices for combat weapons. Speaking of combat weapons, we have the hammer. This here is very simply made with a couple plates, a hammer head, and a tough tool rod. And it's actually got some bonuses to damage on it. It's also your bread and butter when it comes to mining. It's like the excavator, will mine a 3x3 slice, depending on the face of the block that you are currently digging at. For instance, I have this here, and this is currently set to a mining level of stone. So if I try breaking this, it will dig the stone, but not the items that it cannot mine. So for instance, obsidian, dirt, it's not set up for those. Not to say that I couldn't over time eventually dig these things. This would take some time. But as you can see, it can be very useful just for digging out some certain areas for mining. This being just a wooden one, it is very ineffective. But don't forget, you just need to level it up or switch out the materials for something a little better. That being said, it's also decent in combat, not to say good. This is a regular spider that it is currently smashing, and it's doing about 2 hearts per attack, and it's not the best, but if I put something like a skeleton down here, and attack him, I'll do considerably more damage with this, as well as be able to use my shield. So therefore, I could roleplay out myself a little D&D cleric action going on if I wanted to with a smiting hammer. But if you really want to get into some really good weaponry, this is where you get into the really good weaponry. So it's the Cleaver. Now this one here is made with a wooden large sword blade, large sword blade, a large plate, and a couple of tough tool rods will get you the Cleaver. And this one here is basically a two-handed weapon. So if I try using my shield, nothing happens. And you can see that the sword just kind of dances around and doesn't do anything. It's just letting you know it's not going to work. Now, having the shield, there is a slight chance that it might defend something, just allow you to not take damage on it, but otherwise you might as well not need to carry one if you can have something else in your other hand, like perhaps a shuriken. But before we get into that, you can use the cleaver to do some good damage on a lot of mobs in one big hit, and it will take them out much faster than most of the other tools that I've demonstrated so far. But that's not all of the benefits of the cleaver. It comes with beheading 2 built into the weapon. You notice here it says beheading 2. That is just because it's a cleaver. It's freaking huge. It's meant to behead enemies. So if you are looking for collecting your wither skeleton skulls, this is a good weapon to start with and upgrade from there. And now we get into a few more ranged weapons. As you can see, I've got a bunch on my hotbar here. Not to say that each one is going to be any better or worse than the others, but we've got quite a selection. And we're starting off with the Shuriken, which in this case is very simply made with 4 knife blades. And in this, there is no knife anymore. You could use the knife if you want. It's going to have an attack of 2 if it's a wooden one. But just remember that you are putting 4 heads on this tool. And the more heads you have, the more damage output you're likely to get. So with this, I realize the attack on this is very low, and so is the ammo capacity. But keep in mind that this is just a wooden shuriken. Shuriken are not usually made of wood. So I've got some iron here, and it's a little bit better. But it's just for demonstration purposes. There are ways that you can definitely max this out. So this here is very spammy. You can spam it quite a bit. Allow me to you can shoot. You see here, I'm just shot out 5 of them. I can pick them right back up, and it's full durability again. Now, if I hit the enemy, you can barely hear it. The noise that they make when they hit things. But if I hit an enemy, I lose 1. And therefore, there are ways that you can always repair them. But it is an ammunition thing. So if you hit an enemy, it's gone forever. You don't get it back, but there are ways that you can either repair or replenish your tools, as I've shown before. It's the same as in the other videos by using a sharpening kit of the same material that the tool is made from. Now, this being a shuriken, you could have 4 different heads, 4 different tool types, 4 different ways of repairing your tool on the go. So if you put one of those heads as a piece of wood, you can make a whole bunch of wooden repair or sharpening kits, and therefore have an easy way, very cheap, of repairing your tool. Now if I get over here and I walk up to this point where I can see there's a dummy over there. Let's try throwing this. You can see, oh, it falls just shy of him. So there you go. You've got a decent range, but it does have a drastic curve off at the end there. So these are not long range weapons. They're about the same range as a shortbow, but if you aim up a bit higher, you might be able to hit your target as you were intending to. So there is a little bit of a slow motion maneuver to it. You can see I'm getting close. There we go. And I might be able to stretch out how far these can shoot. But otherwise, you can have a lot of fun with this. I mean, they are really, really spammy. So you can often totally pepper enemies with these things and diminish their ranks very fast. But as you can see, it does use up the ammunition on these really quick. And moving on to the Longbow, which is actually very similar to the shortbow. In fact, on my hotbar, it's difficult to tell the difference. Just one icon is a little bit bigger than the other. There's a shortbow, there's a longbow. Now with these, the creation of it for a longbow is going to be a couple bow limbs and a large plate with some kind of bowstring, as opposed to a shortbow, which just is doesn't have the large plate. It will actually just be 2 bow limbs and a string. So this one just has a little extra ability for adding some durability to it if you wanted to add more materials. Now, in this case, this is actually much slower. So for instance, here's a short bow, pew. Here's a long bow, pew. So you saw it was very slow. It's about the speed of a regular vanilla bow to shoot on average. Now you can decrease the speed of which it is to fire this by adding redstone or switching out materials as you need, but it is also a very powerful bow. So allow me to get close enough that I can see the target dummy up here, and I will aim at him. There we go, 5.94. Now let me shoot the same arrow with a shortbow. 2.8. So you can see it has a lot higher damage potential, even though it was made from the same materials, just wood and string, and my shortbow was made from wood and string as well. It's going to have a lot more, and it shoots a little bit faster as far as the arrow flight, so the arrow goes further with that as well. But it's going to be slower to fire in almost all ways, though you just need to make sure you hit the shot. Now, as far as the arrow, it's the same as the shortbow. It uses regular arrows or tinker arrows. You've got your vanilla arrows work and your regular tinker's arrows that you can make, and if you do not recall from the other video I made, you could just put some kind of arrowhead, a shaft, and a fletching in here and create yourself your arrow with interchangeable parts. Now, before moving on to the last one, the crossbow, both the longbow and the crossbow, and of course I should mention the shortbow, all use vanilla arrows if you so desire. If that's the only thing in your inventory, it will use those. If that is what's right next to the tool, for instance, if I put this here, it should feasibly load up, there we go, with a bolt, because that is in my inventory. If I didn't have the bolt in my inventory, it would have taken the regular vanilla arrow. Now, of course, vanilla arrows right next to your tinker's longbow or shortbow, it will use those instead. But let's get into the crossbow here. The crossbow is made, looks a little bit weird here, but with a tough binding, a tough tool rod, a bow limb, and a bowstring will get you the crossbow. And this is by far the slowest to fire, but it also has a lot of different properties on it. If you remember the rapier that I covered in the previous Tier 1 episode, you'll know that this here might have a special ability with its bolts that others don't. So, crossbow bolts are, well, they're only usable in crossbows, of course, because they are called crossbow bolts. But they also have 50% armor penetration. So while they may do less damage, allow me to demonstrate here. This is currently iron bolts with regular feather fletchings and a wooden shaft or bolt core. And then I also have the equivalent iron head with wooden shaft and feather fletchings for a regular bow. But if I shoot this target dummy 2.6 and I use a longbow, the longbow shoots for a lot more damage. But then again, that dummy down there isn't wearing any armor. So therefore, if he was, then the crossbow would probably be doing the same or more damage than the longbow, depending on the amount of armor that it was carrying. Now, it is very slow to load. As you see, the crosshairs take a while. I just hold the button down and then I let go when it gets to the center. It's no longer tap and let it go. It won't do it by itself. You have to actually hold that. And when you either press right or left click, it will automatically fire. And it will fire at the fastest rate as the others. Now, if I left click, it's just going to try and attack with the actual crossbow itself instead of firing. So if I right click, it then shoots and launches the bolt. So as far as bolts go, I'm sure that there is some of you that are probably wondering how to make a bolt core so that you can attach the fletching to it. Well, it's not too complex of a recipe, and in fact it does involve a little bit of an interesting mechanic. You will need at least access to a part builder. You're going to want to make yourself an arrow shaft to start with, and in this case let's make it out of bone instead of wood, so we can get that splitting ability and potentially create multiple bolts from one. Now let's add in a fletching and put in some slimy leaves. We're going to get an orange slime leaf fletching just because I didn't want to use feathers this time, but you could. It's up to you as to the different things that you want to add in. Now what you do is you take that arrow shaft and you you can have it poured from, a tank or a tinker tank or from a smeltery. The choice is up to you, but basically you take your arrow shaft of choice. You cannot change your mind on this. Once you commit to it, these parts are not interchangeable, including the fletching. So keep this in mind. Now, in this case, let's go with something a little bit more interesting. You know what? Molten pig iron. That sounds perfect to me. So instead of the manilin, let's do pig iron. And we'll pour this on here. We've got pig iron plus bone bolts and some slimy fletching. There we go. You now have a bolt core. Simple enough. You just need to pour it into a casting table on top of some kind of arrow shaft. And then, of course, you just run back to your tinker table here, or your tool forge rather, and you can then put the parts together as you want. And you now have a pig iron bolt with splitting, baconlicious, and tasty. Now, if you want to see a little bit of comparison, allow me to demonstrate the differences with the 4 different projectile weapons. So we currently have, or I currently have set up here, this little archery shootout area. Now I'm not going to shoot at the dummy, because if I hit the dummy, you're not going to see anything because the weapons get eaten up. But I am, let's take this crossbow here, and I will load it up. I will aim at this little orange spot over here, and I won't move, and I will fire all the other items here. So I'm going to fire the crossbow. Then I'm going to shoot a regular vanilla bow. And then I'm going to shoot, and it didn't even make down there, a longbow. And then I'm going to shoot a shortbow. And then a shuriken. And let's go take a look and see how far things made it. So you can see the vanilla, the vanilla bow and the regular shortbow didn't even make it up the step. The shuriken, I think, also made it to about the same spot. It might have hit the sign, sorry there. And then we've got the regular longbow, and then we've got the bolt, the crossbow bolt. So if you want distance and accuracy, plus armor penetration, that's going to be your crossbow. If you want your longbow to do a lot of damage and still have some good range and decent accuracy, your longbow. If you want your spam ability and pretty decent damage, you want to go for the short bow, plus it also gives you a lot of maneuverability. And if you want your infinite takedown as fast as you can shoot them, shuriken, then there you have it. Now the weird thing is that your vanilla bow, it is as fast as a long bow, but it only has the range of a short bow for tinkers. So in all this, it's relatively inferior, and I would recommend that you decide on one of these options. Now, in the future, I will be glad and happy to cover a lot of these tools and weapons so that you yourselves can also benefit from how awesome these things can be. And I'm looking forward to getting into our modifiers as well as the materials for these tools so that you guys can better understand it, and then give my own suggestions as to what would be best for you in your personal needs. And until next time, folks, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below on anything that you have to say. And don't forget to spread the mischief to others if you think they'll enjoy the video too. Until next time, folks, I'll see ya.